You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Adam Obernauer. He is an organizer with RWDSU, and he's incredibly busy at the moment, as you can imagine. He's only one of the lead organizers on the most important and largest union election in my lifetime. So, you know, no pressure on him at all, and he has taken time out of his busy schedule to talk to us on talk radio here this morning. So Adam, thank you so much. I cannot begin to express how appreciative I am of you taking the time to talk to us this morning. Thank you very much.
Yep. Welcome in.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very grateful to have you here this morning. And so, you know, to start us off, help us get an idea of your place in the campaign. I know you're an organizer with RWDSU, but what's your official title, and like, what are you technically doing? Like, what are you doing in the campaign?
Sure. So I am an organizer. In New York, I am the director of our retail organizing, and so we do other things other than retail and supply chain and everything else. But in this campaign specifically, I am running the phones, and the phone bank is a pretty big component to the campaign because of COVID-19, which was how we had to try to figure out how we were going to navigate this whole, you know, not meeting in person in the same way that we're used to. And as we all know, as unionists, I mean, meeting in person and building your union is the most important part of creating solidarity that can win and that builds a real union, right? So it's an interesting component of what I've been doing here. It's certainly newer to me in thinking of it in that sense. But I've been running the phone banks, and the trainings on onboarding people to making calls, and, you know, providing the materials that arm everybody on the phones with enough to navigate sometimes difficult conversations or easier conversations. And yeah, so that's mainly my focus overall, in addition to helping with the strategy of the campaign down with the folks in Alabama. So that's been the main focus. And on the day to day, it's a whole lot, because we do a lot of phone calls. We have a lot of pivot conversations. We connect to the ground all the time. And it's a whole massive operation with multiple tiers, you know, in which workers we're reaching out to when. And we have a bunch of different tiers of different organizers making calls. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool operation overall.
Yeah, sounds like it. And you know, definitely, like you said, with organizing during the pandemic, the phone banking takes a much larger role than it would be otherwise. So your place kind of leading that part of the campaign is very important. Can you give us, like, you know, you said that it's really big, the phone banking part of the campaign. Can you put some numbers to that? Like, how many folks are participating? How many folks are making calls into the warehouse, and you know, how many are from outside of RWDSU? What are some of the larger groups, stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So we've had well over 100 people on the phones. And when I say well over 100, you know, that's as over time, right? So we've had phases of different phone bankers coming in. I think if I had to pinpoint the number, it's probably, I think it was like 113 the last time I checked, but we've onboarded more people since then. And so overall, it's just a massive operation. And in fact, we had to, at some point, just turn some folks down because we had so much appetite for people to want to be involved in the phone banking. And the process of onboarding takes a little while because we're really tight with everything, with the data. We want to make sure that everything is just being done in the same way, right? So that we don't have just a mess. It could be very messy having 100 plus people from different organizations making calls. And so as far as the solidarity, I mean, that's one thing as someone that has been, you know, doing organizing for a bit. I've never seen anything like this. You know, I've never seen anything like the amount of people that are coming to want to help. It's really like a movement moment almost is how I see it. Yeah. But for volunteers that we've gotten, just to say a couple organizations and everything, we got volunteers from the AFL-CIO, some of their staff there, the Working America, the UAW, National Nurses United, some of the members there have been involved. AFT, so we have had teachers. We have the Postal Workers Union. We've got UFCW Local 21, the Seattle Area Labor Council, the MLK Labor Center from Seattle, the worker centers like Brand Workers from New York, Unite Here, OPEIU, TWU. Wow. I mean, it's crazy. The Bernie for Labor folks through Jonah helped us like get a whole crew of people who have been making calls through Jonah Furman. It's been wild. It's really been special and something that is new to me. Mm-hmm. I've been organizing for a bit and I've never seen this outpouring of solidarity. I wish it happened every time there was a campaign, at least in a local manner. But I think hopefully it's something that might create a spark and hopefully we can create this kind of solidarity locally in other campaigns too.
Yeah. What's the proportion of I know that basically kind of a lot of the RWDSU staff internationally is their attention is being focused on this campaign, but what's the proportion of folks that are, of those 100 and some odd folks, how many are from RWDSU versus outside of the union?
So at the RW, we have probably between 30 and 40 callers, depending on the day, that are staffed with the union or members of our union. We have members calling too, some of the stewards and from different shops. So that's also a component of it. And then in addition, which I didn't mention, of course, we have the worker to worker component of the phone bank, which is, Amazon workers calling their coworkers as well.
Yeah. And I can tell you from what my mindset is what I would really love to see y'all do is take this to the next level, to the next warehouse, and use this, build off of this same component and make it a run and not just a one off. And hopefully, from what I've heard, y'all have got callers from other warehouses has called you, so that would be wonderful.
Yeah. To
spin this into a nationwide organizing event.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'll let him answer that on the other side of the break. See what what they want to divulge as far as plans after the campaign. But that's really great, and that's one kind of unique part of this campaign is the solidarity. We'll be right back on the other side. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Charge upon the land, a population burned up, bled dry. The marginalized multiply, and unite to fight.
Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. On the line, we have the incomparable Adam Obernaur of RWDSU. He is the organizer running the phone banking campaign for the Amazon union election. And, that's a really kind of unique thing that you were talking about with this election is the amount of solidarity, the outpouring of support, and the willingness of the union to accept the help. I saw it was the Huffington Post's labor reporter, Dave Jamieson, I believe. He said that he met Chris down there who's doing y'all's video and said that he just drove down from Oregon and was like, hey, I want to help. And y'all were like, okay, you can help us. I mean, obviously, you vetted him to a certain extent and you made sure that he was like the real deal and he wasn't some kind of weird Amazon psyop or something. But like, he's just like somebody who's really passionate about it, and he came down and now he's like on staff with RWDSU doing y'all's videos. Like that's like cool as hell, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's pretty special. And I think that, a lot of the credit goes to just the leadership of the union's willingness to also open the doors here. Yeah. I know that we've put together a pretty comprehensive community canvas too, which I know y'all are familiar with. And it's not really us putting it together. It's like the Birmingham DSA, the Birmingham Black Lives Matter, Our Revolution, the PSL, the Socialist Alternative has been phenomenal, and all these groups that we kind of just opened the doors to. We did a similar thing on the phones, right? And so we feel like, bringing the movement back to the labor movement is a real important thing here because, we can't just be fully open all the time, but there's really a lot of folks in the labor movement are very suspect of people coming under the tent. And I understand that. I mean, I totally understand and relate to why, especially with, like you mentioned, Jacob, like vetting people and not knowing who they are and everything else. But at the end of the day, like, we can't be a strong labor movement if we're not welcoming people in and building with people that are from different organizations or volunteering for different left groups or whoever. And I think with the phones, it's really special, but it's also special just in, like you mentioned, with Chris and with other people that are just so passionate that come down, and we're trying to be respectful of this in a way that is building the labor movement beyond just our union and beyond just this campaign, right? And that's the one thing that I think is kind of what you mentioned, David, on the other side of the break, is like the idea of bringing this to other places. Well, you know, the Birmingham DSA and the BLM and these local groups, there are local groups in other places that are going to be worth connecting with. And how do we build this from like the micro level of the local communities, and then to the macro level of other support, like the larger Black Lives Matter network and other like larger solidarity that we're looking for overall, because, you know, I think it's an interesting movement moment, and we should try to replicate it in every way that we can, you know?
Yeah. You know, what's been really interesting to me is about 4 years ago, I was elected to the State Council of Machinists, and we had never really, it's kind of like what you were saying. We've always been reticent about allowing outside interests or, you know, building allies within the community. And it was my specific goal to completely change that and start reaching out to allies. It's really shown, you know, even with us and Jacob as the Secretary Treasurer of the North Alabama Labor Council, to the best of my understanding, we were the only labor council in the entire Southeast United States to hold a Labor for Black Lives Matter rally. And I think, you know, I think that's kind of surprised everybody across the nation, because I don't think there was a lot of trust in the labor movement in Alabama, especially. But what we see with DSA and like all the other groups that you spoke about has really came out and just been amazing allies and support around y'all's campaign, which is, like you said, it's completely unheard of. I've never had the kind of help like y'all have got. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'd say too, did I forget the Northern Alabama Labor Council has been helping out on the phones?
You did. Well, I mean, there's only a few of us. That's not a big deal. And
no, I'm just kidding. I just to your point though, I think it's true. And, you know, we've done similar things at our union before with building. For example, when we ran the Guitar Center campaign, we did a whole thing with musicians. When we did the like Babeland and other smaller campaigns in New York, which were like queer, sex positive, you know, businesses, we built with a lot of the queer community in New York and everything. And we're used to like building with community. The car wash campaign that we did also from our union, we built with very long term immigrant rights organizations in the local areas. But this is just different. It's a different flavor. It's from all over, from all places. And it's just the scale of it is extreme, and everybody wants to help in a way that is different. It's not just like, can you endorse the campaign? It's people coming to say, how can I help? And I'm here for like 2 weeks. And that kind of stuff is just so different than I'll give you a quote, I'll give you, you know, this and that. And so I think it's just really a special moment. And I think it reminds me a lot of like, you know, the Occupy moment or other moments in where you just see outpourings of support, almost like you light a match and then, you know, and you throw it into the fire kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, you said that this is a good moment. And, you know, David said something about this before we went to break. How much are y'all willing to divulge your plans to turn this moment into a movement and go to other Amazon facilities?
Well, you know, that is, of course, something we're very sensitive about, right? And for various reasons, the last thing you want is for an employer to find out what your plans are. And so we're very tight about that. But of course, there's been an outpouring of people reaching out to us. I mean, it's just the moment itself here is massive. And so there are many, many workers that are reaching out and inspired by the workers in Alabama. And that's the piece too. Like, this campaign is nowhere without the inspiration of people like Jennifer Bates and like Daryl Richardson, but also like a lot of the people at the facility that are calling their coworkers, but are not in the public face. And I think that inspiration is just, carrying on, hopefully, to many Amazon workers, but just workers all over the country.
Yes.
So what you're saying is we'll know when we need to know.
Well, no.
And I hope to God everybody will be as reticent to jump on board with the next group, because like you said, I believe this is a moment that everybody recognizes in the labor movement, that this could be a windfall, a windfall, not just for RWDSU. And I think that's why everybody is willing to help, because it could be a windfall for the nation.
Everybody, yeah. And so Adam was talking about the importance of the folks on the ground and the conversations that are happening, and he has been reading notes from every single phone call. And so I want to talk specifically about those conversations and what they've been looking like throughout the campaign on the other side of the break. Stay tuned.
Now that's
Lonely, dead, stuck, bleeding pig. Lonely, did shot, choose to dead.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. We have the great Adam Obernauer of RWDSU. He is an organizer on the Amazon Union campaign, handling the phone banking. And so the biggest reason that I wanted to talk to him is because, like I said before we went into the break, he has been reading notes from every single conversation that takes place over the phones, and that's a lot of conversations. You've got 100 people making calls. That is, as I understand it, it's hundreds of calls a day, and these conversations are really bringing out some of the history that we talked about on our show on YouTube. If you only listen to us on the radio, you should definitely follow us on YouTube. We did an interview with Dr. Robin Kelly, who wrote Hammer and Hoe, about some of the more radical history of Alabama and the Alabama labor movement. And Adam, you're saying that a lot of this history is really coming out in the phone conversation. So talk to us about some of the beats that you've seen, that you've talked about on your in the debrief calls when we're when we're talking about the phone, when the phone bankers are doing our debriefs. You've talked about beats that the campaign has had on the phone banks throughout the campaign. What have some of the major points been?
Yeah, no. So this is really interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people have wondered, well, what does that history have to do with this campaign? It's been so long ago. What does that mean? And it is interesting because I wasn't sure what it would mean theoretically. Robin Kelly's Hammer and Hoe is a phenomenal book. And I think that it's very inspirational to read that and see the roots of the history here in the area, which is just, it gives me a great appreciation for Birmingham, for Bessemer, for Alabama in a real way. And that's why when you see things like what an odd place that this is happening in Alabama, it's just so ahistorical on so many levels. And I just think it's funny when I see that, because it's like it not only doesn't take in part or in consideration the civil rights movement, but also like the radical labor history of the 30s in Alabama. And so, on the phones, many workers have uncles or parents or grandparents in unions. And what does that look like? So I spoke to a worker yesterday that had their grandparents were in the Mino union in the 30s. Their parents were in the Boilermakers union. Naturally, knew about unions, knew about negotiations knew about all of this, and we're just excited that this was happening. But that's just one conversation. We've seen this many times on the phones. We've seen my uncle told me if I don't vote for the union, he's going to come down here. And,
Yes.
there's a lot of that. And what does that mean? Well, it's not just that they're union members. It's that they have deep histories in a lot of their families of the union in general and the unions in general. And I think it shouldn't be lost on people too, what those unions were back then. I mean, they were really the forefront of what was seen as some of the most progressive and left partnerships between working class white people and people of color, and specifically Black people in Alabama. And it matters, right? I do think that the history matters. I think people's ancestry matters. And I think that their connections to the unions in their family's history can't be separated from the campaign.
Yes.
We just had Chris put out a video with a worker, Emmett, who talks about his family's history in the unions too. And that's what got him interested in joining. So just to say that, I mean, it's something that regularly comes up on phone conversations for sure.
Yeah, and I know Jacob's got some other questions that he wants to get to. He's over there typing right now, but I was wondering if you could just take a moment to speak to what you, and it goes back to what you heard on the phone, but one of the things that's been constantly said about, I can't believe this happened in Alabama, and I think that speaks to the level of oppression that these workers are seeing. And I said it a few weeks ago. We work a little bit. We talk slower in the South. We work a little bit slower in the South, and it goes back to the heat that we are under, the humidity that we're under. We're just used to doing things a little bit slower because we know you got to make it through the entire day. And this company is not used to our style of work at all. But, so could you speak a little bit to what these workers, the pain and the agony that these workers are under right now? Because I think that puts a highlight on why it happened in Alabama as opposed to other places.
Sure. That's an interesting point. I think if you think of Amazon, it's a lot of everything's monitored. When you step off your station, it's considered TOT time off task. So immediately, if you're off station, that time starts ticking. So that's where you see the complaints about breaks, right? Why is there a complaint about a break? Well, if you got to walk to the break room in a big facility and then you take your break and then you got to walk all the way back, like how long is your break? It's half of what you thought it would be. And then your time on task is ticking immediately when you walk off the station. And so that's definitely a major piece of frustration for workers by and large. And it's just the overall surveillance kind of style that Amazon has as a whole. That's just basically, pushing you to go as fast as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And like rate, right? You're judged upon your own rate. So if your average rate is 250 pieces per hour and you fall behind to 230, then you can get a write-up. It's like the task is constantly being pushed and rate is constantly being pushed. And that's how Amazon kind of squeezes workers' labor out until the time that they're burnt out, and then they just leave, and then they get another fresh person to come in and do that work until they squeeze them out. And then they always fall back on we have a $15.30 minimum wage here at Amazon, which is partially true, and so you should be happy. That's really offensive. You should be happy with what we're giving you because, not everything's just about wages. And also $15.30 is not a living wage. It's not bad. It's better than other places, but that doesn't mean, it's like the throw money at you, so you should be happy kind of style, which is not very, it's not very respectful.
Yeah. Well, and it's not any, it's a little bit better than some other retail or service jobs, but this is a warehouse job. And Josh Brewer pointed out in some of the other conversations that he has had that some of the small regional warehouses that y'all represent in the area, their wages are higher than Amazon's, and they certainly don't have the largesse that Amazon does, but they've got wages at some of those other smaller regional warehouses, $18, $19, $20, $21 an hour that y'all represent.
Yeah. And I like to say this a lot because, I don't believe in unskilled labor.
Yeah,
I think that it's just it's a nonsense idea. Even if you're working a job that you have to deal with customers and you have to deal with customer service, whatever it is in service industry, everything. And there's this idea that, this is just unskilled. We'll just throw someone else in. These are not unskilled jobs. I mean, it's just not. And so I think that when you look at that, there's a reason, there are nurses that are unskilled labor in some places that when they don't have a union, right, and they're making $12 an hour, I'm sure people would think that that's unskilled. You look at people, it's just all about organizing, right? Yeah. And it's all about having a union. And at the end of the day, if nurses never organized, if teachers never organized, I mean, it's only we're very close from considering that unskilled labor to a degree, in my opinion, because I think that everything you have to organize in order to take what you deserve. And I think that when you look at some warehouse jobs, and we at the RWDSU also have warehouse workers that are making $70,000, $80,000 a year. We have really good warehouse contracts in other places around the country too, and not just Alabama, which we also have higher wages in some of the warehouse work here. So I think a lot of it it's that perception, right? In retail too, it's interesting. We have retail workers that make commission that make $100,000 a year that are members of this union, which is wild, right? But then you have also retailers that are non-union that the workers make minimum wage and no commission. Right. So where's the the only difference is the union.
The unskilled part is only unskilled until somebody, and it's really a classist. It's a way of convincing the working class to turn against the other portion of the working class. But the unskilled portion is only unskilled until you leave McDonald's or Hardee's or what have you, and they screwed up your hamburger. Then all of a sudden you want skilled workers, and it's a slap in the face to anybody. We say it all the time. All work has value, and if you don't believe that, then you don't deserve to. You really don't deserve anything because everybody out there is struggling. Simple as that. There's no such thing as unskilled workers, no matter where you're at. I can guarantee you, especially at Amazon, because they probably got a lot more technologically advancements than what most workers see in their day-to-day life.
Yeah. So, what are what are the more anti-union workers that folks in the phone banks are talking to? Because of course there's been a really good reception that I've seen calling workers. I've actually not had a bad conversation. I've not talked to any virulently anti-union workers there, but there are a few. And what do they say when you tell them these things, and what are they saying to the folks? And there are a lot of them that have been brought from really anti-union to now being kind of central in the campaign and calling other workers supporting the union. So what have they been saying while they're anti-union, and what has the journey looked like? And we've only got about a minute and a half left, so if you need to pick it up on the other side of the break, that's fine.
I'll just say this. Union busting is psychological warfare. It is, a constant attack on information. And when you are an employer and you can sit down workers to sit down through 5 to 10 classes, as they call them, it's really difficult sometimes for anyone to just to push through it. And a lot of workers, and I say that to answer the question, Jacob, to say that a lot of workers that we talk to will say, look, I just want this all to be over. Like, I'm tired of hearing from the Amazon. I'm tired of hearing from the union. There's just too much information. And that's a goal that union busting has, right? Is to say, we're just going to throw so much information to the point where nobody knows what information is true. Nobody knows what information is false. And that's that. And so that's part of it. The dues, right? The confusion around dues is a big thing, right? Even though Alabama's a right to work state and you wouldn't have to pay dues. And we lean into that to say, look, you pay dues if the union has a good contract and you have a good steward structure, you have a good, but to get there, it takes a while, right? In a conversation, because there's a lot going on. So I would say that a lot of workers do flip, though, when you talk about it and they realize that
we'll pick that up on the other side. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
folks. Welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host David Story. On the line, we have the great Adam Obernauer, an organizer with RWDSU. We were talking about some of the conversations that phone bankers and workers, organizers, volunteers have been having with some of the anti-union workers in the facility. And so, Adam, I'll let you pick back up there where you left off.
Yeah, and I'll just be brief on this too. I'll just say that the workers here overall have just been very resilient, and so they could go through 9 anti-union classes, and then we could talk to them for 30-40 minutes, and they will come around and understand that it's a little bizarre. I'll say one of the that Amazon focused so much on vote no, and I'll say one of the things that's really helpful is to say, well, look, why do you think if the union's so bad, why do you think Amazon's spending so much money and time pulling you from time off task? They're pulling you for these classes, and they're so on you about making sure you don't get pulled from your class, from your time off task, even for breaks. Yep. But all of a sudden, they're willing to take you out on these classes to teach you about why the union is bad. If it's, why do you think they're doing that? Why do you think that they're paying these educators $3,200 a day, and they've got so many of them in there, to convince them that the union's bad? If it's that bad, from Amazon's perspective, then maybe it's something worth looking into. And that's sometimes what will click with one of the some of the workers is, I don't know why they're spending so much time on this, and so I think that that's really helpful, especially thinking about how anal Amazon management is about you coming off your task, but they're more than happy to pull you off to talk to you about how the union's bad. So that's interesting. So I guess, telling you that the union's bad is much more important than you using the bathroom. Right. And I think that's a good, it's been helpful on the phones.
Yeah. And when you say the union's bad, I think it's important to clarify what they're saying is the union is not going to be any help for the worker. Right. There's not going to be anything there you're just going to pay dues, and they're not going to do anything for you. So, I just wanted to clarify that what they're saying is they're not going to do anything for you. You're going to get nothing out of it except for you're going to have to pay, a few dollars a month.
Yeah. Right. And because what they do is and this I'm sure you're familiar with, right? They third party the union, right? And it's like, well. And
they don't third party their lawyers and the people they pay $3,000 a day that are literally, that nobody in the warehouse asked for those people to come in there and talk to them. People asked the union to, the RWDSU to talk to them, and they're talking to each other. And so, but they're the third party, not the union busting lawyers that they pay millions of dollars to. Certainly not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what we say always to people on the phones is, look, you all are creating and building your union. Yeah. And whether you like it or not, your coworkers thousands of your coworkers are building this union, and they expressed interest in building this union. And so if they say, well, what can the union do for you? A lot of the times we like to say, well, you're building the union. What would you like to do with your coworkers to change things at Amazon? And then there's a confusing shift sometimes. It's like, wait, how am I the union? Well, I mean, you literally are. This is how it works. And, we're here to guide you through the process, but the process is the process. And we hope that you're able to take back power and ownership and agency of your lives through the unionization process. And so a lot of times that does click with people, because they're like, oh, wait, so you work for the union? What's in it for you? It's like, honestly, at the end of the day, like, we're going to keep organizing other places. So it's going to change your life. It's not going to change the staff life of people that work at the union. It's not about us. Right. And so that's usually pretty helpful in talking to folks.
I found that it's pretty helpful when they realize that I'm not even staff. I'm not I'm a member of some random other union that's just in it because, I love the workers and I love worker power, and I think they deserve more. And so that's been, whenever I've had the more extended conversations, I've been able to tell them, like, look, there's literally, I don't get commission for this. This isn't my union. This is my movement. And this, and I believe that everybody deserves more. Have there been any, specific conversations that you wanted that you'd like to pull out, or is kind of the broad strokes cover most of it?
No, I think most of it's covered. I mean, I think we've covered most of it. And I'd say too, on the like you said with the volunteer, the one thing I'll say is there's this, the thing that they floated around was about the union, that they're fancy, expensive cars. So I like to say on the phones when I hear that, it's like, if you know who's giving away these cars, let me know. I don't have a car. I haven't had a car in years. So I'd love to get, give me the number of who I can call. Can you ask that labor class guy who the union staff can call to get one of those cars? So it's it's pretty funny. It's special.
So how are y'all looking? How do y'all feel? With the vote ends in 9 days. All ballots have to be in by March the 29th. How's the RWDSU feel? We
feel pretty good. It's tough. It's a tight race. I'm just to be very honest about it. Amazon has done what we would say is like psychological warfare and really hammered down on all of this. And so there are people that are not in favor of the union, but there are many people that are in favor. The playing field is not even. I think this campaign exposed that to the mainstream on some things that we've known for quite a while. But it is a close one. I do believe we're winning the atmosphere. I do believe that there are a lot of workers that are calling us saying, hey, I want to support the union now. I didn't support the union before. And I think that that's because of all of the support. The community canvases matter. Workers are seeing people in their communities knocking on doors, and they say, I thought is the union knocking on doors? No, that's your community members just supporting you. Yeah, right, so that has come up on the phones also. And so we feel pretty good about it. It's such a large election. It's hard to tell, of course, because there's so many workers, but we're looking onward and we're feeling hopeful.
What about folks that want to volunteer that haven't been able to get integrated into the campaign yet? What if there are folks listening that want to help and want to support, what can people do at this point?
Yeah, well, you got 1 week left, so there's not a whole lot of time.
There's not a whole lot, but there is a week left. Today and tomorrow we have community canvases going on. You can come by the Union Hall. Today we have music. We're going to have food trucks. It's going to be a whole community day at the hall. Tomorrow there's another community canvass meeting out of the hall too. And so I would suggest if you can this weekend, it's going to be a big day. It's going to be a lot of fun. And in addition to that, we're looking forward to winning a contract fight. So this is we're looking for long-term relationships to build. So anyone that's in the area, come on and contact us. And we're looking to build some real community support here. If you're not in the area, we probably have a legal battle on our hands. So feel free to reach out to me too. If you want to get involved, I can plug you into the right space.
And when you say the Union Hall, everybody in Alabama knows where 5 Points South is. I mean, 5 Points South in Birmingham is like an iconic area. The Union Hall is just around the corner from 5 Points South. So if you Google RWDSU, I think it's Mid-South Council, that will take you directly to the Union Hall. But if you're a little bit unsure, it's basically 2 blocks over and 1 block north from 5 Points South, so it's very easy to find. There's a lot of parking down there, not right in front of the hall, but you can park just about anywhere downtown, and you're just a few blocks walking distance from it. And I would assume today, with the wonderful Nina Turner coming out, that you are going to have some more kind of. I really wanted to be there for that because I just love her to death. She's a brilliant ally.
Both of us have heard her in person and I think it's been one of the more for each of us. I think it's been one of the more inspiring speeches that we've heard.
Yeah, she's phenomenal. She'll be here in a little bit, and we are all inspired by Nina Turner, and our union is happy to also support her campaign. Awesome. So for sure, and we've got a couple more surprises, hopefully, for the next week to see. We might have another couple community days and things like that. So We're looking forward to it all. And yeah, definitely reach out to me if you want to get involved in some form or fashion. We'll try to do our best to plug you into how to support.
Awesome. Yeah. Adam, thank you so much. You've been very generous with your time. Do you have any closing thoughts for folks?
1 minute left.
My closing thoughts, I would say, is for everybody that's looking to organize a union in your workplace, to not be discouraged. I think that one thing that the Amazon workers has shown workers in general and people in this country is that you can take on Goliath, and you can do it with collective action and with power that you build with your coworkers. And sometimes it feels really, really hard, and it feels like you can't do it and it's too big. And we've heard that a lot from people at Amazon is, you really think the union can take on Amazon or Jeff Bezos? Or you really think, and we hear that from small employers too, like workers that are at a place. It's like, can you really take on this? We're not going to win. You can win, and you can take on, the biggest employer in the country. And I think that inspiration, sometimes we get caught up in not thinking things are possible. Yeah. And, everything's impossible until it's done. And I think we got to have a radical imagination sometimes to think of what we can do. That's, I think, what I'd say is my closing words.
Yeah. I mean, we are the workers. We are the producers, and we have been browbeat for so long that it's a lot of times it's hard for people to wrap their minds around. We can stop any day that we want to. Yeah. And when we stop, capitalism loses. And shop floor democracy is a beautiful thing when everybody comes together.
All wealth is created by labor. They wouldn't have anything to invest if it wasn't for the product, the fruits of our labor. So all the power's in our hands if we want to take it. Adam, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I think everybody else has, and thanks for talking to us, brother. I appreciate it.
No, thank you guys.
All right. Folks, make sure you stay tuned. We are talking to Anna Mudd, a legislative assistant with the National Association of Letter Carriers, about the repeal of the pre-funding mandate. Stay tuned.
You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
So thanks for tuning in, folks. Here's an announcement right at the top. This Saturday and every Saturday, the North Alabama DSA holds a necessities drive from 3 to 5 p.m. at the IBEW Local 558 Union Hall on Clinton Avenue, right across from Yellowhammer and Campus 805 in Huntsville. So if you're in the area and you want to drop off some clothes, some non-perishable food items, blankets, PPE, then swing by the IBEW Local 558 Union Hall on Clinton Avenue in Huntsville, Alabama, right across from Campus 805 and Yellowhammer Brewing from 3 to 5 p.m. every Saturday, and that means this Saturday. The donations are all forwarded to the Manna House, so they're going to a good place. You can follow at DSA North Alabama on Twitter for more information. So if you want to see what we're up to throughout the week, get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, you can search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we do clip segments and release them throughout the week. So if there's just one thing you want to watch, you can find it there without having to watch the whole show. We also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So to see if we are on your listening platform of choice, go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. We've got a website where you can get our fantastic USA union-made hats. That is thevalleylaborreport.org. They are $35. That includes shipping, and it's really good. It's really good, folks. It's a good hat. I wear it all the time, even though it's a bit cheesy to wear your own merch. I wear it because it's a good hat. Another way to support us is if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, you can make a monthly donation to the show on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.